Welcome back. Penn State ends its tumultuous roller coaster of a 2025 season on a high note. Terry Smith ends his head coaching career with a winning record. And here to break it all down is myself, Tim Maiden, and Jared Slanina. Our colleague Patrick Kerbor, who usually hosts this, was actually at the game today in the Bronx. So even though he froze his buns off, at least he got to witness a win. So we're happy for you, Pat, if you're watching this. And so, Jared, just whatever thoughts come to mind right off the bat, feel free to just lay them out for us.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was a nice way to end the season. There were so many players out this game, so it was just very unpredictable. I mean, it's like so many of these bowl games. You just have no idea how things are going to play out because you have so many absences. It really impacts the game plans. There's just a lot of things from the regular season. You're just not, it's unknown, whether you're going to be establish a pass rush or running game or things like that. So just an impressive effort. I mean, it seemed like everybody really wanted to be there. There's a lot of younger guys that I was very impressed with today. Really gave me hope. I would say hope for the future, but we got to see how things play out over the next couple weeks here, see who's going to be back in Happy Valley, who's going to be elsewhere next year. But there's a lot of guys that just showed a lot of potential today. I mean, Darius Dixon immediately comes to mind. He's going to be a future star. Hopefully it's going to be here at Penn State. Moving forward, Grunkmeyer, I know there's questions about who's going to be under center next year. And a lot of people believe that Rocco is going to be coming over from Iowa State and will be the guy to lead the offense under Matt Campbell once again. But I mean, Grunkmeyer just continues to impress me, gets better with each game. I mean, I just think he's got so much potential, and I already think he can see the field and read a defense so much better than Aller ever could. If I'm being perfectly honest, after just sixth, this is a seventh overall.
You won't get any argument from me against that.
So. Yeah. So, just really happy for the team to go out like this because, I mean, it was a complete disaster of a season compared to what we were expecting. Really for Clemson too. I mean, we're talking about a game that we just saw. It was the preseason number 2 against the preseason number 4 team. So, a lot of people had these teams meeting in the playoffs and the semifinals. Some people were predicting, one or the other win the national championship this year. So considering how things went off the rails early for Penn State, it was just really great to see them go out and just kind of play hard and get to enjoy this victory together.
Yeah, and I'd echo some of the sentiments too. I would also add just I think it's also just great that Penn State got the win. They avoid their first non-COVID losing season in over 20 years. 2004 is the last time that happened. And so that, that I know in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean much, considering Matt Campbell and, his staff are getting into place already. But, it's just nice to not that this team doesn't have that, unfortunate distinction of being, the first one to sport a losing record in a full season for, since 2004. So that was good to see. And also Terry Smith, he's now 4-3 lifetime as a head coach. Obviously this is his final game in that position. I don't know what position specifically he's going to revert back to, if it's going to be coaching corners again. He is retaining his assistant head coaching title.
Yes.
And I know he's going to be the highest paid non-coordinator in college football. So we'll see what he ends up doing. But, just really happy for Terry. And I'm sure you've heard the chants on the broadcast, everyone chanting Terry's name as the clock was winding down and him getting a well-deserved dumping of whatever that was. Just
grass clippings.
Mowed grass clippings. So, that was really nice to see. And just like I said, considering how awful things looked at one point this season, to end it on a 4-game win streak and, to avoid a losing season, and when it sure looked like we were headed in that direction, that's definitely shows a lot of. There's still some fight within the team, within the program. There's still some pride, and so it was just good to see that. And
Yeah, and I just on that note, I just want to give so much credit to Smith because the way the season was going. I mean,
absolutely,
when he took over, think about it, where this team was. I mean, the wheels had come off. Franklin got let go. They go into a bye week, and then they come back and. Or I actually can't remember if they had the bye week before or after the Iowa game. Actually, it was after the Iowa game. So they went straight into the road game in Iowa, played at Kinnick in a really difficult environment. Then lost games to Ohio State, lost a heartbreaker to Indiana. So, it took a really just amazing effort on Smith's part just to hold the fort, hold everything together and just get these guys to continue to play motivated football, which they did. And they ended the game on a 4-game winning streak. I mean, there was times after the Indiana game, even going back before that, we were thinking we may not see another Penn State win this year. There was 3-9 was definitely on the table. And we were thinking we may not see much effort and just we may see this team get blown out by some bad teams at the end of the year. And that absolutely did not happen. They really, honestly, even like the offensive line and run game was better than we saw all season towards the end. So obviously everybody kept fighting and played really hard under Smith. And it's obvious that they really play hard for him. And I think he's going to have a huge impact on the retention of the roster, guys who could potentially either move to Virginia Tech or just look other opportunities. I think that's going to play a huge role in keeping a lot of these younger guys that we saw showcased today, keeping them around and building around those guys and potentially having a pretty good season next year, especially when you look at the schedule.
Yeah, just to build off that, I can still remember the three of us doing our post game show after the Indiana game, where it's like let what would have been a great upset win just slip away, and I remember Pat I was like, it happened again, and we're just wondering like, does this team still have any fight left in, or they just use it all up in that game? And we got our answer. I guess they still had something left in the tank because the following week they went out and gritted out a tough win on the road at Michigan State, and that kind of maybe lit a spark under.
For sure, yeah, because that team was so inspired at home, the final home game against Nebraska, and just considering everything they'd been through, it wouldn't have been shocked if they just, everything could fall apart. And instead they came out and maybe gave their best effort of the season that night.
Yeah. And I definitely want to, good. I want to continue talking about, guys that would be imperative to keep around for Campbell in a moment, but just real quick, just don't have to get too much into the Pinstripe Bowl game itself, but just some thoughts watching today. It was pretty clear, for one, the weather was having an effect on both quarterbacks in terms of throwing. You saw passes that normally would be on point or that normally would have been caught just get dropped. Or
several very poor drops in this game.
And
it was trying to catch a walk hard football.
And that fake punt by Clemson at the beginning of the game. I mean, I understand, it's a bowl game. I mean, it's a non-playoff game, and you might get a little cute there, but to call that from your own 30-yard line, also I don't know where that throw was even going.
It was an odd play. I don't know if it was an audible by the punter where he opted or audibled the fake punt or whatever, because the gunner that he threw to, I'm not certain he knew the ball was even in the air, was being thrown to him. And then afterwards he jumped on the ball like he thought it was a punt, like he was downing a punt. So there was definitely some confusion on Clemson's part there. But yeah, that was a strange sequence there to start off the game for Clemson.
And that led to what ended to a Penn State field goal, which we were hoping would have ended in the end zone. But I guess that was the first drive without Katron Allen or Nick Singleton toting the rock. And so it was Corey Smith getting the carries on that drive. But I'll tell you what, Quentin Martin Jr. That's he had his coming out game of sorts. 101 yards on 20 carries. Didn't have a touchdown, but averaged a solid 5 yards on the ground. And it became clear in the second half, to the coaching staff that, they needed to pound the rock of him more often.
Yeah, and I mean, none of the running backs had much experience, so it's kind of one of those things too, where when Martin was in high school, he's probably was such a great athlete, he could just run past, run through a lot of people, and he probably with limited reps, he probably hasn't really adjusted to the speed of the college game. And even the second half, you can kind of see it seemed like his vision was improving, and he was seeing where to make more effective cuts. So. Really impressive game for Martin. It seems like he's a strong runner, and just with more experience, so kind of his vision will improve, and I think he could be a pretty good running back next year. Again, one of those guys we hope is in blue and white next year, not elsewhere.
Yeah, and also all it's add too. It was frankly a rather boring game for 3/4. I think one of our colleagues, Bennett, even said in the Slack channel about. I think I'm gonna go take a nap.
Yeah, because I was thinking at one point, I'm like, I don't know what Tim and I are going to talk about after this game ends.
The way it was going, it's 6-3 at the end of 3/4. Like,
yeah, I would have guessed.
What are we going to talk about here? And then Trevor Pena finally decided to do something about it with a 73-yard touchdown grab.
Yeah, and while we're on that topic of Pena, that was a really incredible play, because Grunkmeyer threw the ball between. It was a third down. And it was a pretty crucial third down at that point. And Grunkmeyer just thread the needle, beautiful pass between two defenders. And then Pena, I mean, that was a huge effort play on him, because he had two guys on him. He easily could have went down, and he just kept the legs churning and broke that tackle, and he was off to the races. So really incredible play by Pena there, and really just kind of helped it. I wouldn't say shift momentum, but, it was definitely a play that definitely swung things in Penn State's favor when they were only up by a field goal.
Well, I'll tell you, at that point, when it was, I think it was actually 9-3. I mistaken.
Oh, 9-3. Yes, you're right. You're right.
But it was 9-3. And I remember thinking to myself, if Penn State can just get up by 2 scores, like even just kick another field goal, make it 12-3, like that would be massive. And in a game where it just felt like, big plays and points were at a premium. And so, for Penny to rip off that first touchdown was huge. But I don't know, I guess in typical Penn State fashion, they let Clemson just march right down the field and score a quick touchdown to kind of negate that. And all of a sudden we found ourselves sitting there thinking like, oh boy, we're going to blow another double-digit fourth quarter lead that goes to James Franklin returns or something.
Yeah, because there was 9 minutes left or so after Clemson's touchdowns. There was still plenty of time if the offense, had a 3-and-out or short possession. I'm not going to lie. It was the way some of these other games have went this year. You just the several double-digit blown fourth quarter leads, and I thought, well, we may be going down that route again, but fortunately, it wasn't the case.
But yeah, they put together an absolutely clutch 8-play, 75-yard touchdown drive, which that culminated with a touchdown pass to Andrew Rapplier in the end zone.
Yeah, effectively, that was a really impressive play call, because you could tell Clemson just fully assumed that, okay, they're going to let the play clock run down to almost 0 and then run the ball here. And they went tempo, which almost never worked this season, it seemed like. But they caught.
I was thinking, Jerry, like, why are they going tempo here? Like,
I was too.
Let the clock run down,
But it worked to perfection, because all Grunkmeyer had to do was take the snap, and Rapplier was completely by himself.
Clearly saw something, in the defense that they weren't set for.
Yeah, so really smart play, just a very smart play call there, considering that Clemson was just completely unprepared for what was coming at him there.
Yeah, the one-time going tempo didn't backfire on the team this year. So because we've seen it have the opposite effect so many times this season.
So yes. So for especially like the beginning of the season too, it seemed like they just weren't learning their lesson, and that was like really was just shutting down the offense every time they tried to do that.
Oh yeah, and then of course defense comes up huge one last time, get a 4th down sack on Kate Klubnik to end the game, and it just all academic from there. So just again. We're not. This isn't a game we're really going to remember in 5 years, but just nice way to end the season at least.
For sure.
Like I said, winning record and all, and send Terry out the win. So
On the subject of the defense too, I just wanted to mention tonight Dennis Sutton, someone we didn't really think he didn't opt out, which I was a little surprised about to begin with. And then I figured, well, we'll see him the first couple series or so. And I was kind of surprised after the first quarter, that he was the first person looking for the field, but he played all 4 quarters, played with great intensity the whole game, really wanted to, cap off his Penn State career with a victory. And, he had 2 sacks and several pressures, which helped. Even Harvey's sack, he kind of got Klubnik to scramble off course, and Harvey just shot right up the middle and got him. So really just a phenomenal game for Deni Dennis Sutton. Just really happy for him to be able to close out his career with a victory, because he was one of the guys that I thought he was going to go pro last season. And guy that I'd be surprised if he lasts past the second round. I'm not certain what specifically his draft evaluation is at this point, but so someone that could reasonably be just opted out for this game and no one would have blamed him, but instead he not only decided to play, but he was in there the whole game and just really leading the charge on the defensive line.
Well, he put out one last quality game tape for NFL scouts to see, or NFL front offices to see when they make decisions on draft day. So you'll see. It depends on how he tests the combine and how he interviews with teams. But maybe he sneaks his way into the first round, perhaps. But at the very least,
combine, he could.
I think at the very least, though, I think he's an early day 2 pick, like early second round guy. So I think he'll end up being, he might be maybe the first in the line to get drafted, unless there's another.
Vanga's probably going to go first.
Well, it's Vanga, Vanga Ioane. So,
but with guards, it's kind of hard to tell with interior linemen. But it sounds like he's going to be the first interior lineman off the board, though. At least right now. Obviously, those things change a bit once we get into the off season and combine and everything.
Absolutely, and I guess maybe there's a nice little segue into talking about players. Obviously, Dennis Sutton, Vanga Ioane are both off to the NFL, but there are several guys who we've kind of mentioned in passing already that it's imperative that Matt Campbell does everything he can to keep them around. And so, Jared, I know you mentioned, I think you mentioned Darius Dixon and Ethan Grunkmeyer already. Another name I'm going to throw out there, and we've just mentioned now, Andrew Rapplier.
Yes.
I mean, he's the most complete tight end on the roster in terms of he's a full package. He can block, he can catch. I mean, he's like similar like a Pat Freiermuth
for sure
type. So
yeah, he's come off an injury this year, and we saw a lot more in the second half of the season with Grunk under center. But yeah, Rapplier could easily be a first team All Big Ten selection next season. I mean, he can be a very highly productive player and a real cornerstone of the offense. He's just dangerous in the passing game. One of those guys is hard to cover because he's just, not only does he have the size, but also the speed and elusiveness. And to his credit, he can block very well too for being such a good receiving tight end. So really is a complete package, and he'd be a very valuable member of the offense to keep around next year.
Absolutely. And of course, I would say definitely got to keep Quentin Martin around. He looked like the most complete back out there.
We finally had a Tiki Hayes sighting too, and I know he only had a few carries at the end, but he looked good, and he's got a lot of potential, and redshirted this year, so he could potentially have another 4 years of eligibility. So I think he'd be a very important guy to keep, and I'd imagine he'd get not quite a few, but he would be one of the primary backs heading into next year, depending how things shake out of the offseason. But he could be a regular contributor on next year's offense as a redshirt freshman.
I think another offensive name for out there, Kobe Howard. He had a couple of catches in today's game, but he's a guy who, we heard a lot of hype about him during the offseason and fall camp, and then he never really got much of a chance for most of the season not until after Terry Smith took over.
Exactly.
The coach, that we finally got to see more of Kobe, and he showed some flashes of brilliance.
Mm-hmm. And he definitely carved out a role as a deep threat, in his limited action, but I could see him developing a much more complete receiver next season, kind of maybe taking over that tenure role, where they're kind of using him a lot of different ways.
And if they can somehow keep one of either Tony Rojas or Amari Campbell around, one of their starting linebackers for next year, because they both have 1 year of eligibility left.
Yes.
That would be huge.
Yeah, and I'm kind of hoping for Amari Campbell. I mean, he just came to Penn State from UNC last year, and he actually came in the summer. So, all credit to him for having a really amazing season, even though he wasn't really with the team until August, or maybe it might have been a little early in the summer, but he didn't really have a whole lot of time, with the late transfer. But yeah, just coming in from UNC last year, he may be looking for stability. Obviously, would probably be the best player on defense heading into next season. So, I think there's just a lot of reasons for him to stick around, and hopefully that's the case.
Also, you had some freshmen really step up for the defense today. Vabwe Torre had 7 tackles and a sack. And also, Jalen Harvey, as you mentioned, had the game clinching sack at the end. And also, Evan Kemaju, didn't record much in the stat sheet, but he's been another freshman defensive player who's been important for us. It's definitely all those are guys we want to keep around. We want Matt Campbell to keep around too if he's able to.
And even Keon Wiley too. I mean, he's another guy you didn't see the first half of the season. You saw him a lot more once Terry Smith took over. But he was someone who I think he needs to develop a little more consistency, but he definitely has that big playability. And it seemed like at least once a game, he was making a great read and making a big play in the backfield, for a 4 or 5 yard loss, where he would just kind of make the right read and get to the running back as soon as they're getting the ball, or fly in there and screen, which he did some point in the first half of the season, or first half of this game earlier today, and had a negative hit. So, and someone who we didn't see today because he unfortunately got injured heading into the bowl game, but Alex Tash showed some flashes. So another guy I'd like to see back, and would definitely be an important role on the defense next year.
No question about it. I guess, going back to, you mentioned Gronk earlier, and, going in before today's game, I guess I was thinking it was all but certain that Rocco Becht was coming in, transferring from Iowa State. He's only got 1 year of eligibility left, but he would come in and, presumably win the starting job. But after seeing what Gronk did today, and especially in these conditions,
yes,
I'm hitting the pause button on Becht here. I'm wondering if maybe you just work on developing. You also got to bring in some guys from the portal, because the quarterback depth is pretty thin. And I mean, you don't want necessarily Peyton Falzone and Casey Evans to, be your backup necessarily as true freshmen. So, but I think I almost feel like you just try to keep Gronk around and just develop him. And I know Campbell and Gronk have a relationship because he offered Gronk out of high school. So it's gonna be an interesting conversation that decision he's got to make on that front, because it's kind of hard to see both of them existing on the same roster.
Yeah, I understand the point of Rocco. He knows the offense, and he'd be good, almost like a coach in the field with all of his experience and everything. But I just really think he limits the offense of what you can do. He just doesn't impress me a whole lot as a passer. I think Grunkmeyer just has such a higher ceiling, and he's going to be so much more prolific. And honestly, I think he's already a much better quarterback than Rocco, where we stand right now, let alone a full offseason.
I think he's better than Aller.
Yeah.
Really was, frankly, at this point. You got to remember, he's played 7 games to start now, so he's basically he was basically in like mid-season form for this game. And look at the stat line. I mean, 262 yards, 2 touchdowns, 23 or 34 passing. I mean,
he barely missed anything in the second half. I think one of the
first half was rough. I mean,
and I think a lot of it
second half, Gronk especially picked it up.
But he's so much more just accurate but consistent than Aller ever was.
And poised.
Yes, I mean, Aller would make some like incredible throws here and there that you may not even see in an NFL game. But then he'd followed up by missing 3-4 throws in a row, and like you said, getting rattled, and kind of he was just very streaky. Where Grunkemeyer just seemed so poised and just very consistent, and just kind of hard to rattle, especially for someone that didn't have a lot of experience.
Oh, thank you, Philip. Big time Buckeye fan here. Glad to see Penn State get the win. Appreciate the kind thoughts. Hope you guys knock off Miami on New Year's Eve. My mom's an Ohio State grad, so they're kind of like my second team, I guess you could say.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping for big showing for the Big Ten teams.
In general, it's like to see the Big Ten teams do well.
Yeah, I got a chance to have 3 of them in the semifinals, so we'll see how
multitude
that
of reasons.
Friday, or not Friday night, Wednesday night.
Yes. Guess before we move on, just want to do a quick just pitch. We had over 580 subscribers last I checked before we went live, so thank you to everyone who subscribed, especially over the course of the season. I know I mentioned this last time, but when we're doing our our season preview show in late August, we had just crossed the 200 followers threshold, and things have grown exponentially since then. I guess having the season we had is one way to get a bunch of new subscribers, but I'm sure also word of mouth or just sending this thing along to your friends or family or whatever. Whatever it's been, we've increased our numbers quite a bit, and we thank each and every one of you for doing so. I know if you just do a quick search on YouTube, you can find countless Penn State podcasts, post game shows, whatever. So the fact you're subscribed to us, 15 of you watching us live right now, and sure, many more of you will watch later after this recording's done. And, we really appreciate it. We don't take it for granted. And, we do want to continue to keep doing this, even though we're now in the off season. I think, especially now with the Matt Campbell era officially in full bloom, and with the transfer portal opening up on January 2nd, we're definitely going to have a lot to talk about still, even in the dead of winter. So definitely appreciate your viewership for that. Jared, I guess any final thoughts on just the game, really the 2025 season, or what you're looking forward to now in the Matt Campbell era?
Yeah, well, one last thought on the game I don't think we brought up was Ryan Barker, who really did an amazing job. He was not the starter coming last year. He replaced the name escapes me right now, but the really highly recruited kicker that really struggled like once he was in during a game. But yeah, he really came in and has just been rock solid last couple years. And today, in a very low scoring game, in a game there was really terrible conditions to kick the ball, he was 3 of 3 and just reliable as always. So just a big shout out to Ryan Barker for just a really incredible game today, and just an incredible last couple seasons, really.
Well, yeah, he was absolute cash money this season as a kicker. I'm pulling up his stats here. He was damn good last year, 15 of 18. Mm-hmm. This year, 15 of 16.
And the one miss was a blocked field goal.
Was a block. Yeah, he didn't even shank a single kick.
52-yard attempt before halftime. It was earlier in the year. I can't remember what game it was, but might have been non-conference. But yeah, that was it. Besides one block, he was perfect.
That's definitely not something you typically see in a college kicker. So
especially someone who's kicking in some bad conditions, not just today, but second half of the season, there was some pretty rough conditions that he just excelled in.
He's only a sophomore, so another guy that Matt Campbell absolutely needs to keep around for next year.
Having a reliable kicker makes all the difference in the
world. Make him the highest paid kicker in college football.
There you go.
He deserves it. I don't know what the NIL market is for kickers, but just give him the max. So, yeah. Final thoughts. Just quite a season. Maybe for a lot of it for the wrong reasons. But we did at least get to see, how beloved Terry Smith really is as a coach, as a person. And for him to end his head coaching career on a winning note, with a winning record, to hear his name chanted by the fans at multiple games, not just the senior night against Nebraska, but today in the Pinstripe Bowl. That was pretty cool to see. And you can tell a guy just, he bleeds blue and white. He loves Penn State. He really wanted to stick around. And I'm glad Matt Campbell, saw that and keeping him around. So I'm happy for him. And, I think with the Matt Campbell era, I think I'm looking forward to just having a coach and a staff. I think that maybe will bring an identity to the team, because it just felt like, especially offensively, we just seemed to lack any sort of identity. We couldn't decide what we wanted to be. Do we want to be a ground and pound team? Do we want to be, I don't know, running all this trickeration and running what some people have dubbed the horizontal air raid, or
I remember making the joke early in the year. I think it was a little before Franklin got fired, but when Patrick brought this up, what exactly is this offense's identity? And I said their identity is basically running a offense designed for a mobile quarterback with a drop back quarterback. So just like a terrible fit, and it just really made no sense the way they managed that. But we don't need to rehash that.
Right.
Talking about, but you're exact to your point. This offense especially had zero identity, and it was like they were always trying to figure out who they are and what they wanted to do, and it was like they never just consistently, not just maintained, but consistently attempted to be one thing or the other. It was like they were just always trying to figure things out and make things up as they go.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to them just having an identity, sticking to it, recruiting to that. And the other thing too, I've noticed other, I think podcasts and maybe other ball knowers on social media or message boards have been putting out, but staff that brings in, that recruits football players, maybe they're not like, I mean, you gotta be athletically gifted, of course, but I think part of the problem with the Franklin era was we were recruiting these great athletes, but they weren't necessarily like great football players. And
correct, yes.
When they actually put the pads on, or when, it just didn't quite pan out the way you would have thought it would.
There was a lot of guys we just would hear back from a physical standpoint and thinking, oh, this guy's going to be an All-American. And then, like you said, get the pads on, and they just didn't really develop anywhere near what we thought they would.
So that's what I'm looking forward to. I think you're going to see more like actual like football players, not just athletic freaks who put on football uniforms and maybe don't live up to their billing. So I think you're going to see more of that. I think you're going to see.
And Campbell, sorry, before we go on another point, but while we're staying on that point, Campbell's and his staff have done a phenomenal job of developing people, not just developing, but identifying talent. They really had to figure out who to bring in, even 2-3-star guys at Iowa State, and develop them into, either really good college players and sometimes, NFL players that, a lot of people didn't think they were going to make it to that level heading into college. So, really good job identifying talent and developing those guys. And that is definitely something to be excited about for the future.
I think you're going to see an improvement in that department. Not that the Franklin staff was bad at that, but I think Campbell can take it up
for sure
a few notches. And just also, I think you're going to see more, kind of like what you saw when Terry took over. I'm going to be more accountability and discipline.
Yes.
It just seemed like I don't know, there may have been a sense of entitlement towards the end, and you kind of see how certain guys after a big play. I keep thinking of the Indiana game, like it was on the Indiana's game-winning drive. They initially got a sack and put him like second and long.
Got a sack.
And like Zane Durant or whatever is busy dancing instead of getting back to the line of scrimmage and getting ready for the next play, and things like that. And just
and I don't know if it was just a commitment from Franklin to get them to return or NIL or whatever it was, but there just seemed like there was guys the first half of the season are just untouchable, and they weren't producing at the level that we expected, and we just weren't seeing a lot of players until we mentioned this already, but until Smith took over, and then we're all seeing Keon Wiley and Kobe Howard and a lot of these other guys going out there and making plays who just absolutely got zero meaningful snaps the first half of the year.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that getting cleaned up too with Campbell. It seems like, I mean, obviously there's like seems like a fairly chill guy, but I'm sure as a head coach, he's pretty like no nonsense. He has a way of doing. I mean, he's been a head coach for over a decade now from Iowa State and Toledo. So he's a lot more experienced as a head coach than when Franklin was when he came into Penn State. So I think he knows the way he wants to run and build a program, and I think he's going to be able to, with the resources he'll have available at Penn State. I think he'll be able to hit the ground running if he hasn't already. It's going to be interesting to see how things shake out in a little less than a week when the transfer portal opens, because I'm sure there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes between him trying to keep certain players in the fold and also go after players that are going to be hitting the portal.
Yeah, we're going to have a very newsworthy couple of weeks heading up.
Yes. Not on that note, yes. So we will definitely be doing others. I don't know if this will be next week, but definitely sometime, maybe that first full week in January when there's been some portal movements. But hopefully Pat will be back for that. I'm sure it's a discussion he would certainly love to be a part of. But yeah, Jared, do you have any? I don't know if you have any final thoughts you want to share before we call it.
No, I think we kind of covered everything as far as today, and what we can from the season without rehashing so many of the things that we went in great detail over the year. So I think we did a pretty good job of kind of covering the big picture items from the season and just today, and I guess my last thought is considering that this was a season where we could realistically dream of Penn State winning a national title, or at the very least making a very meaningful, deep playoff run, and things absolutely did not happen. I mean, obviously, we just watched them play in the Pinstripe Bowl, a 6-6 team, but it's something you can kind of look back on and just be happy for the players for the way things ended, despite what a massive disappointment and just how bad things were looking at one point. But, again, they continued to fight. They went out there and played with a lot of intensity and passion today. They obviously wanted to be there, despite the season not going nearly the way that they wanted to. And just you can be happy for the players and the coaches. And again, just look back at this 4-game winning streak at the end of the year, and just really ended on a positive note for such a disastrous season. And we have a lot of things to look forward to, even though that there were a lot of seniors in this team and they'll be losing a lot of guys, there's still a lot of reasons to be optimistic for next year. Probably not a national title contender, but, I wouldn't say like 10 wins is off the table. Obviously, we have to see how things shake out and everything, but, could still have a really good season next year and build on that. And, there's a lot of things to be optimistic about, considering how poorly the season played out based off of what our expectations were.
Well said, Jared. On that note, just one more time, please like and subscribe to us if you haven't done so already. And just thank you to everyone who has subscribed to us this past year, especially, those of you who've done so in the past few months over the course of the season. We do want to carry this momentum into 2026. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers next year. So, every little new subscriber helps. So, if you like what you see here, you think your friends or whatever might be interested, pass this along to them. We'll be back sometime in early January once the transfer portal opens up, because there'll be plenty of news in both directions for Penn State regarding that. So keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your holidays. Have a happy new year, and we'll see you soon.